Hi, my name is Aaliyah Boyd, and this video installment is for the educational blog, The Daily Climb. And today we're going to touch on a sensitive subject. We're going to talk about grief, and especially grief around the holidays. And what prompted this idea in me was Thanksgiving. We had a casual Thanksgiving. My mom was here, and we cooked and cleaned and did the whole day, and it was actually a really beautiful day for me. I just really enjoyed myself. I wore this apron. This is my apron that I wear on special occasions. I made this apron from one of my father's shirts, and I made one for myself and my mom and my nieces and sisters, and I love to wear it because it reminds me of him, and that brings me joy to remember my dad and to think of him. And so on Thanksgiving I did, and we had a wonderful day. And then at the end of the day, around 6 o'clock, my mom came up to me and she said, "Hey, I really need a hug. I feel just really, really sad and lonely." And I felt kind of ashamed because I realized that I hadn't really acknowledged my mom, being alone without my dad on Thanksgiving, or even acknowledged my dad in any way except for to myself. And so anyway, I thought about that, and I got some advice from some friends and read some material, and I wanted to just share a few ideas with you about, how do we remember people? What do we do if we're afraid to ask others about the loved one that they've lost? Maybe we don't want to bring up bad memories, and maybe they don't want us to, or so I've got just a little bit of advice about that from some great people. But one thing I wanted to mention before I go is that last year would have been my son's 22nd birthday. Our first baby, Robert, died when he was just 2 months old, and he was born on January 6th. And last year, a friend of mine just said, "Hey, Aaliyah, what are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, it's Robert's birthday, and every year on Robert's birthday, I take down the Christmas tree." Because the day that he was born, I took down the Christmas tree. And so that has been my tradition to remember my son for the past 22 years. Around 6 o'clock that night, the doorbell rang, and there stands my friend and my daughter. I knew that she was over at her house doing something, I didn't know what, with a birthday cake for my son. And that was just such a touching moment for me, and such a treasure for me to know that others really did care about my feelings and really cared about me remembering my son in a special way. And so I just wanted to remember that moment and savor that in this video. I hope you get something out of the slides that are to follow, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks. So, grief during the holidays. It can be really tricky. Gatherings are already charged with so much energy and chaos and intensity that the holidays can be especially difficult for those who are grieving the loss of a loved one. If you are at a gathering that you just don't feel comfortable sharing your feelings, you may be sad, but you don't want to show it. You may be happy, but worried that people might think you're, inappropriately happy. It's just there's so much to grief, and grief is so individual that it can be a very tricky thing to get through the holidays, and even every day while you're grieving. Or when you're watching someone you love grieve, it might be difficult to know just what you're supposed to do in a situation when you're with them, and you don't want to cause pain, so you don't want to bring their loved one up, but at the same time you really want to know how they're doing, but you're just not quite sure how to come up with the right thing to say in that moment. So in my experience, having been a grieving mother and having watched my mom grieve the loss of my dad recently, I just know that there's no really one answer for everybody, because everyone's so different. And so there's no way to know how you can help somebody except for just to ask them. It's just really simple. You just ask them what's best for them, and that's all you can do. So you could say something like, "Is it hurtful or helpful for me to bring up your loved one? Or do you like talking about your loved one? Or should I wait until later? Should I give you a call? Is this the right moment for me to share a memory I have about your mom or your dad or whoever it is you're thinking about?" And or do you have a favorite memory about your loved one that you want to share with me? So just things like that. Other people will openly share their thoughts and feelings about their loved one, and you don't have to wonder or guess. One of those people One of those families, I should say, is the family of my friend Melanie and Cassie and Jenny and Stephanie. It's just awesome the way that they bring up their dad. They lost their dad a little bit after I did, about a year later, during the holiday of Memorial Day, and it was a sudden loss and tragic for their family, but the way that they share their excitement and love about who their dad was and is, it's really inspiring, something I love. When you're remembering a loved one, it may just happen naturally during the day and you can bring it up. And that may bring up a lot of happy memories, or it could cause sadness, like I was talking about in the case of my mom when she, on Thanksgiving, had remembered my dad and it made her lonely and sad. But that is all normal. It's part of the grieving process. And so being a good friend, I think, when someone's grieving means just letting the process happen and not being uncomfortable with it. So you might celebrate specifically remembering your loved one with a special event, like going to the cemetery. My friend Melanie said they absolutely do not do that, but I loved to go to the cemetery on special occasions. On my son's birthday, you could go to their favorite place, a restaurant or whatever, make one of their recipes. And that's a really fun one to do if somebody had a favorite recipe, or watch their favorite movie. We laugh about that a lot, about my dad and what his favorite shows were, and just different ways you can remember the ones that you love during the holidays. A friend of mine named Jolynn, she lost her daughter during the holidays 7 years ago during Thanksgiving time. And when I asked her what her advice would be, she pointed me to this TED Talk that I've heard before, but it was very great to listen to again, and we'll include that link on the blog. But after she lost her husband, she has since remarried, but she had this to say about life. Life is really good, but I haven't moved on. And I hate that phrase, and I understand why others do, because I have not moved on from Aaron. I've moved forward with him. I love that. I think that that is so beautiful. And, we all want to make the holidays special, but sometimes grief just pops in and there's nothing we can do about it. So, like we have mentioned before, there's so many wonderful resources you can find, and we've listed a lot of those on our blog. And do your best and make the best out of every situation that you possibly can. And then when it doesn't go like you hoped or wished it would, start over the next year. And as time moves on, some things will heal, and some things, like Nora has said, we just move forward and we don't actually move on from those that we love so much. And I hope maybe this had an idea in it that sparks something positive for you, and I appreciate you listening. Have a great day and happy holidays.